What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. It's our weekly show where we review the magic stories as they're posted on Wizards' website. And we are here for the first week of Dominaria stories. At least that's what I would be saying. But they pushed the first week of Dominaria stories back, and so we're going to be talking about the reasons why by talking about two articles, or at least using that as the backdrop for our discussion today, because this is something that affects the Vorthos community as it does really any community, sub-community within the whole of the Magic community. And so we wanted to talk about it today. And so we're talking about the article and the situation of Dominaria-Leaks. The first article, called Dominaria-Leak, is by Blake Rasmussen, and the second article is called On Dominaria Previews and Moving Forward by Aaron Forsyth. So, if you are the two people in the Magic community who are not aware of what I'm referring to, first of all, I will start by saying, no fear, there are no specific spoilers being discussed in this video. You will hear why Aaron's reasoning was, but we are really just joining our fellow content creators in realizing that words were what were spoiled, right? Words and numbers, that's not fully what the cards are. What the cards are is the art, is the flavor text, is the borders, is what the cards look like, what colors the cards are, etc. Not all of that was previewed in the preview, in the leak that occurred, and Wizards did not then just respond by giving you everything. And we'll talk more about that. But, just so that you are all aware, for those of you watching this video, do not be afraid. We will not be mentioning any cards whatsoever. We will not be mentioning any... All we will be talking about are the broad topics that were discussed in these two articles about these leaks, and that is it.
Or at least we're going to try.
Yes, well, we only really know about one.
Oh, okay, good.
Physical card, which was previewed in Aaron's article, which is technically a preview that can be viewed at this time and everyone knows about, so that could be discussed. We're probably still going to shy away from that, and we encourage you to go check out these articles and that preview on your own time and go check their website for it, because this is not the place that you come for up-to-the-minute news. We're here to review some of the situations in the Magic community. So, with that too long of an intro, but we wanted to make sure that you were all comfortable watching it. If you're unaware...
And you're not, so you're already gone, I get it.
If you're unaware of what happened, there were Chinese release notes for Dominaria that were leaked. Blake said in his article the phrase, "This was our fault." So I don't know whether that means it was Wizards of the Coast specifically from China having accidentally leaked that, or whether it was an affiliate of theirs or something, because there are a lot of people that need to know about these things going in. So I'm not exactly sure who it was, but basically after that leak occurred, a lot of dual language fans or multilingual fans were translating that document into new and other languages. Maybe it was through their own knowledge, maybe it was through Google Translate or things like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I did look at like a snippet of one of the translations just through people talking about the spoilers, and it was pretty poor. The translation was pretty poor. The one that I saw, of course. Maybe you saw a perfect one, and that's fine, but Wizards of the Coast, Blake and his team, because it could not have been just Blake in my estimation, I could be wrong, but Blake and his team stepped up and they got in front of it, which is important for a business to do. They said, you know what, there's probably going to be a lot of misinformation out there, and so we are going to show you what is real. And they did by releasing the actual translation of the release notes, the official release notes. They released them because they've already been spoiled and they don't want people working off of misinformation or partial information or starting rumors or whatever. So they decided to go through and do this instead. And we will talk about our opinions on that in a minute. But one of the other things that Blake, or some of the other things Blake talked about in his article, were other things that are going to be coming from Dominaria. And by that I mean, with the release of Dominaria, you have things like Access Magic videos on Dominaria and the history of it and etc. You have Enter the Battlefield episodes or videos. There are going to be 3 of those. And we're going to get 5 Magic Story podcasts. Now, if you follow Blake on Twitter, you already know about the Magic Story podcast thing because he talked about it last week at some point. But now we have a specific number, and there are going to be 5 of them. So with these 5 of those, 3 of the Enter the Battlefield, and then an undisclosed number of Access Magic videos, this, in my estimation, is where they may decide to get into the more particulars of Dominaria lore, which we talked about last week. We did not fully expect to be included in the stories, which we will also talk about how that was affected in a minute. But I don't fully expect... I expect that that's where, if you want to go in-depth, and Blake did use those words as well, if you want to go in-depth on stuff, that's what you need to watch, is the supplemental stuff to go along with it. Listen to the podcasts. Watch the Access Magic and the End of the Battlefield videos, and that's where you'll get that information from. Because I don't expect deep dives of, backstories and super, random tertiary characters from the past to be heavily brought up and discussed in the limited number of stories that we have.
I think that's a great thing. I think that's really good.
Agreed.
Because for the audience that is already well aware of all of that stuff, they don't want to just have it spat back at them years later and not really develop on any of that, not really create a new story because you're spending so much time rehashing the old stuff. And I feel like a lot of the community, if they are that type of person, they might start going on and, just conversing with the rest of the community. And so people who read this, that, and the other can kind of get a more full picture of the information that they're missing from the past because they're kind of seeing tidbits everywhere and it's kind of filling in the blanks for them.
Right.
That's what I'm kind of hoping happens because I think people will be very upset if these new stories are really just more of the same information that they already knew.
Or, honestly, if they're an old school fan and there's a particular character, even if it's just one, where they're like, I desperately need to know what happened to character X.
Right.
Well, if they don't find out about that, they may look back on these Dominaria stories and think that they weren't good.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's very limiting, but at the same time...
It's not doing them a justice.
But at the same time, if you have a favorite character and they're returning to the only place that you could ever find out about that character, you may have a point. You may want to know about that character. And so hopefully, if it is not in the main story, hopefully these supplemental products for the story and the lore and the flavor and the Vorthos content will go more in depth and answer those questions for the more hardcore fans. Before we move away from Blake's article, I personally want to mirror what everybody said, or I say everybody. A lot of people that I saw said this. I don't want to say everybody. There are obviously other opinions out there besides this one because that's how it works. And
of course there are.
And if you have a different opinion, as always, let us know what they are in the comments down below because we're always interested in hearing it. But from many people that I saw, there were compliments being thrown out to Blake, to his team, for how they handled this leak. The response to the leak was put out the evening of the leak.
Yes.
In the past, that would be Daily MTG, which updated at a set time every day, and you would have had to wait almost 24 hours for it to update the next day. And for all of that time, you'd have rampant speculation, you'd have incorrect information, and then by the time they did address it, it's likely that most people would only know the false information and not then the real information that was posted later because they wouldn't have bothered to go back and check the real information
right.
because they'd already seen what they assumed was real but turned out to be fake. And so for the company of Wizards of the Coast to get out in front of it, like I said before, is very good. They answered it very quickly, and they did it in what they thought was the best way. And that was to promise more information that that coming Monday, which was this past Monday, at the time that we're filming this. But on this past Monday, when they were supposed to have had mechanics articles and rules updates and things like that, instead we got this other article from Aaron Forsyth. And what that article said was that they received, they being Wizards of the Coast, a positive response from their getting in front of this leak and the article that Blake put out about the leak. And from the sounds of it, from the tone of how he wrote it, he sounded surprised. And I don't blame him for sounding surprised, because from a lot of what we have seen in the not so distant past, Magic fans are hard to please.
Yeah.
We are absolutely included in that, but not for everything. And I don't necessarily consider myself to be incredibly hard to please, but with certain things, there are things that we have come to expect and that we would like to see. And if we don't, we are going to give our opinions on it, because we have a show where we can do that, and that's what we're going to do. And in this instance, what Aaron...
My head on the wall here.
what Aaron...
My hair is doing it.
The set is attacking you.
Yes.
What Aaron was saying is that because of that positive response, and because a lot of the fans were saying, hey, whoa, we don't want you to just throw everything at us now because we've seen, as I put it earlier, some words and some numbers. We haven't seen the cards yet. We haven't seen the art on the cards yet. We haven't seen maybe some new card frames that have been put out to show these cards. We haven't seen any of that yet. So don't respond to someone leaking this information by just going, okay, well, here's Dominaria.
Right.
Welcome to the plane that you've all been waiting to come back to.
You've been bamboozled again.
Because
here it is.
It would be so anticlimactic. And because it was just words and numbers, to see the art, to see the card frames, sure, you know what a lot of these cards do. You know a lot of the text on it if you've read the review notes or the set notes or whatever. You may know what a lot of the cards do, but you don't know what they look like, and you don't know what the flavor text is, and you don't know what the Story Spotlight cards are depicting in terms of the storyline. And so because of that, a lot of people have decided to go nowhere near the spoilers, which is why we, as well as many of our fellow content creators, have decided we're not going to talk about them.
Yeah.
Not because we don't want to go through and read them, because I won't lie to you, I've read some of them, and they seem really cool. But it's not my job to then come on here and make a video and put it out as quickly as possible and go, oh my god, we got this and this and this and this, oh my god, and then spoil it for everybody else.
Right, and make a review of it. As
Right.
if to say, like, oh, you know, this stuff wasn't even meant to be put out by the company yet, but we're already, you know, forcing our opinions upon it.
Yeah, because you don't fully understand it yet. You just don't. You can't. Because you don't have all of the information.
Right.
You don't have every card in the set. You don't have every mythic. What you do have, and this is what some
You don't
fans...
even necessarily know the direction or the premise that they're trying to hit with this set.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff is still, you know, it still hasn't come to pass yet in terms of us knowing about it officially. And so it wouldn't be fair to just start spouting out random opinions on whatever it is that we come across, because the people who took the time to make this set, you know, they put a lot of hard work and time into it, and I'm sure they put a lot of love into it, realizing that a lot of the nostalgia factor when it comes to Magic the Gathering is really going to reach a precipice, basically.
Yeah.
With this set. And so they really have a high bar they need to reach. And so to just kind of dump it all onto us because a little bit of information got leaked.
Or even a lot of bit of information.
Well,
But still, I agree wholeheartedly with you. Still.
I like that this is the way that they're deciding to do it this time, instead of the last time when they just basically were like, oh, well, this sucks. Here you go.
Mm-hmm. But,
Because that sucked.
yes, but to be fair, with that one, that was a full sheet. And so you had the art, you had the rules text and the flavor text and all that. All of that was there. That you couldn't hide away from. In this case, and what I've heard a lot of people saying in a way to take a bad situation and make it a good one, this set, which is clearly a very lore-intensive set, a set that is so based in history and lore and flavor, now the only thing to be spoiled, the only thing left to be spoiled, are the flavor aspects. Because you don't know what flavor texts on cards are going to be. You don't know what the art looks like. That is the meat and potatoes of Vorthos. And this was going to be a Vorthos set before it even came out.
Yeah, I mean, technically.
And now that the release notes have come out, now it's even more so. Because now preview season, etc., is not going to be, hey, here's what this cool card does.
Right.
Because some people who want to know already know what that cool card does. What they don't know is, hey, here's what this cool card looks like. Hey, here's what this cool card says. Hey, here's whatever. All of those different things are, at the design aspects, they are unknown still. And so that is still a very valid preview season to have. And so that's where Aaron's article comes in. And what he ended up saying was, instead of throwing everything at us this past Monday, they decided to hold off a week. Now, the main reason that Aaron put out there for why they were holding out a week is because the Masters 25 is coming out this Friday. And so there's a lot of stuff going on this week to preview Masters 25, not the cards, because that's done already, but articles talking about how to draft it and release notes for it, answering rules questions. Things like that are all coming out this week. And so if you were to also have a bunch of stuff on Dominaria coming out because, oh damn, like Amy said, our stuff leaked, so here you go. Mm-hmm. Now all that you're doing is, frankly, for the second Masters set in a row, undercutting the crap out of it.
Right.
Because they already did that with releasing Iconic Masters shortly after Rivals, but before Unstable, and so there was really only like a week or two where you could even draft Iconic Masters in paper, because then stores were moving to Unstable stuff because that was the newest thing at that point, and there were no previews for Iconic Masters, and so there were a lot of issues. And then you have Masters 25, another set going along with Dominaria, and something that they mentioned multiple times in these articles, this is the 25th anniversary of Magic the Gathering. And so
this should be a big deal.
And they want it to be. They've probably worked very hard. In fact, I'll take away the probably. They have worked very hard to make Masters 25, to make Dominaria, to make the stories, the flavor, the art, the mechanics, the cards, the draft format, the standard format, the modern format. I mean, I could go on.
Right.
They've worked very hard. Yes. And they've worked very hard for that. And now they're having to eat some crow because they're a big company and they have to get... People want this information. And honestly, the main reason that I can think of, besides just tell me what the cards do, I want to know right now, the main reason that these things get leaked is for finance reasons. Because there are people out there who, rightfully so, because I enjoy value just as much as the next person, but there are people out there who will want to have gotten those release notes as quickly as possible, looked through them, found out what some of the mythics were, what they do, and how that will interact in Standard, in Modern, in Legacy, and what that might mean for other cards that interact well with these new ones that maybe have a low price point now but are going to have a much higher price point later.
Right.
And so they're going to go out and spend a ton of money either buying out, like doing straight buyouts of online sellers or vendors, or just buying a playset for themselves if they just want to make sure that they can play Standard for a reasonable amount of money,
Right.
or Modern or Legacy or Vintage or whatever, Commander as well. Excuse me.
And that's really important, especially with how expensive some of these cards get.
And you can say that you are one of the people who's like, well, I'm not going to look at spoilers because the spoilers came out. But at this point, some people may be forced to if they want to get ahead so that they can help their wallet out a little bit.
Right.
So they may begrudgingly go and read the thing for themselves or go look at the quickest article that they can find written by somebody obviously outside of Wizards who has analyzed it and has said, hey, because of that, this card is money, or it's going to be money and you got to go get it. And they're going to go out there and they're going to get it. And I can't blame a single person for having done that because I don't play Constructed. But if I did, I would want to do anything I could to give myself a leg up on buying those singles. That's important. Now, whether you agree with it or not, there are also buyouts as a possibility. And there are people who will see, hey, this card is definitely going to jump up in price, so I'm going to go to Star City Games, TCG Player, whoever,
Right.
Card Kingdom, and I'm going to buy them out of every copy of this card that they're selling, especially for Commander or more Eternal formats, because then you can turn a profit and make a nice amount of money. You can essentially set the price on that card, and you can say how much you want it to sell for, because if you bought it for $1 a piece or $5 a piece, and you want to sell it for 10 to 20, you're making quite a bit of profit. And again, it's however you feel about it. That is what some people are going to do with these previews.
It really sucks because, in most markets, that's not really a thing. The consumer doesn't really dictate the price. The overall market does. And with Magic, I think what's happening basically all the time now is that, certain consumers are sharking people and just making the market do what they want it to do. And it's I don't know, it's potentially problematic for the Magic community, of course, but then also for Wizards of the Coast.
And this, we are not unaware of the fact that this is not a new conversation.
Right.
Many people have been having this for years, so bear with us, and that's not, we're not an MTG finance channel by any means, but it is something that, to go along with these leaks, is a discussion that is somewhat warranted to have as well, for
Right,
the reasons
because
behind why they happen.
Exactly. It's the cause.
Yeah, there's a market for leaks, and so there are going to be leaks. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned, Aaron's article said they're going to be pushing everything back, but only by a week. We film these on Wednesdays, and so a week from today is when we will be back with all of this Dominaria information.
Right.
Now, we will be back with the other episode of JaAR next week, which will actually be, as I joked poorly about at the beginning of the episode, the first week of Dominaria Stories will be next week. Mm-hmm. And here's where I become the hard to please fan. Right? It's got to be at the end. First of all, I will say, following Martha Wells on Twitter, right, the new author for the Magic Stories, she put out a newsletter or an update article for her fans, for her followers, to let them know what she has going on with her. And one of the things that she talked about were the magic stories, which, first of all, as we mentioned 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, that's really good for magic, right? Magic, or it's good for Martha because new eyes are going to get on her, and if they like the story, they're going to then go out and check out her stuff. But if Martha has hardcore fans, or because Martha has hardcore fans who enjoy her books, they may go check out these Dominaria stories to see, hey, what's this all about?
Right.
And then Magic may
What's
get...
this new thing she's working on?
Right. And Magic may get new fans. And I don't necessarily mean new players, I mean new fans. And I think there is, to a degree, a difference.
Yeah.
So, and
Certainly.
they can blend and become one and then the other, but still, I think that it's a very nice symbiotic relationship that they've been able to form. But in her newsletter, I read the quick part about the magic story, and she mentioned that it was going to be 11 stories. If you were around 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, whichever it was, I believe it was 2, when we talked about Martha and her entrance into the magic world, we talked about the fact that she said in the podcast and the article that she was going to be making 12 stories. So now it's 11. This is not unprecedented. It is the reverse of what happened with Rivals of Ixalan, where Rivals was announced as, we're going to have 5 stories for Rivals of Ixalan, and that's it. And then, about halfway through the Rivals of Ixalan stories, they announced, we're going to have 6 stories of Rivals of Ixalan, and that's it. So they went from 5 to 6 there, they're going from 12 to 11 here, at least in terms of what they have announced.
Well, but then they also had because that wasn't including the alternative endings.
It was not. So then it was 7, but that was not real story. That was just, hey, here's some more information.
Right.
But, so, like I said, here's the hard to please Magic fan. The Magic story for Dominaria was set to release this week. The reason that they decided to push it back along with all of Dominaria's stuff is because the leak happened. And the main reason, as I mentioned, that Aaron gave for why they wanted to push it back was because they didn't want a lot of confusion with Masters 25 stuff happening. Well, I'm sorry, I have been paying attention, and you were releasing a story this week, and you said you were going to, well before the leak happened. So why push the story back if it wasn't originally a bad idea to have the Dominaria story out at the same time as you were putting out preview articles and writing articles and giving opinions, etc. on Masters 25? It had to have been, that rationale in my mind doesn't track. It just means that it was always a bad idea to have this story start this week. Which I'm surprised by, because it's kind of a big deal. And again, if you want Masters 25 to be a big deal, then let it be its own thing.
Right.
We discussed, spoilers I guess if you didn't watch our last video, excuse me, but we discussed the fact that the Dominaria information, or no, it was 2 weeks ago, the Martha Wells information when she was introduced to the community was put out on the same day that the Rivals of Ixalan finale story was put out. Why? Why are you using Dominaria to undercut everything else that you've done? You did it with the end of the Rivals story, and now you did it with, or were going to do it, you've since stopped, but you were going to do it with Masters 25 by your own admission. It's just surprising, and it's unfortunate, because, as we've mentioned, it's not shame on you, you're a terrible company, it's like, you have a lot of people...
Figure your shit out.
No, but even, I mean, you have a lot of people who work really hard on this stuff. Let them get the praise that they deserve. Let the community have a chance to absorb this. Give them a week. Hell, if Masters 25 is only releasing Friday, and then you're putting out the Dominaria stuff on Wednesday, you're giving us 4 days, 5 days, which is fine. But give us those 5 days. you're not doing that when you're releasing information about Dominaria the same time that you're releasing your finale, and then you would have had the story come out the same week as even before Masters 25 finally actually released. As always, if I'm wrong, if you disagree with me, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm never looking for an argument. I'm looking to be educated. And I'm looking to hear other opinions because that's how I see it, but that's not the only way to see it. So I want to know what you guys think. Last, I wanted to give both of us a chance to just, and maybe we've done it already in the video, but I wanted to give us a chance to give our opinions on leaks in general. Because we're sitting here talking about the Dominaria-Leaks, but this is not the first. And unfortunately, I doubt that it will be the last. And again, that's not a knock on Wizards of the Coast, in my opinion. That's just, as you said, either before, I honestly don't remember whether we talked about this before the episode or during, but this may just be what is happening now. This may just be the norm.
Well, my point was that it almost seemed from the article that Wizards has kind of resigned themselves to this being the new reality. Even though after the last leak, it was kind of like, you know, it was a really big deal last time. And
Yeah.
I feel like this time they just kind of have decided not to care very much.
Well, I will say, because we got called out on this, and I tried to have a discussion with the person, but they didn't respond, which is fine. But somebody put the phrase, and I'm going to get the phrasing wrong, but the absence of proof is not proof of absence. So even though they didn't say that they care and are working to make it stop, you have to imagine that they are trying to make this stop. My point and my opinion is, I don't see that.
Right.
I'm not necessarily owed that.
Right.
I don't think I'm owed anything. But at the same time, I'd like to think, as a fan, as a consumer, and as someone with the minorest of platforms to discuss this, I'd like to think that there would be something said to the effect of, look, we're sorry, right? This sucks, and we are going to work very hard, one, as they did do, to say, this is how we are going to handle this set and the previews for this set, but also let us know you're trying to fix it in the future.
I don't know.
It is a big company, and they do a lot, and it is international. So I understand that it is, I would be naive if I were to say, that's it. This leak happened. That's 2 in a row for 2 of your main blocks. There aren't really blocks anymore, but you know what I mean. For 2 of your main worlds, you have had things leaked, spoiled, what have you, twice now. Plug it up, never again. I would be naive to think that that would be the case. But it would be nice to hear from the company, just to have them say, we're aware of it, we're working on it, it's upsetting to us, but we're working on it. Also, because I'd like to try to hit as many points as possible, I am also aware of the fact that it wouldn't really be fair of me to say that they don't, or that they aren't, because it would most likely behoove a giant company like Wizards of the Coast to not say in an article to the world, hey, this is what we are doing to combat leaks. Because all it really means is, this is all you have to get around if you want to leak stuff.
Right.
So I get that aspect. But at the same time, just saying we are working very hard to prevent this from happening again, that's what I was looking for. And I was a little surprised that nobody else said that, or at least nobody that I saw. I'm sure that opinion was out there because it's not very nuanced. And it's not very original and unique of an opinion, but that's something that I noticed and that bothered me. It was like, okay, yes, they did an amazing job, and they should be commended for how they handled the leak after the fact. But what are you doing proactively as opposed to reactively? Because there's a big difference there.
Oh, yeah.
And as we discussed earlier, it's not even just because of your fans who want to just enjoy the experience of experiencing a new set.
Well, it's about your company as well.
Yes, but it's also about your customers in trying to get the best value possible, because you will have sharky people like Amy mentioned reading this article as quickly as possible and either doing buyouts or buying it cheaper than the rest of us will have to when the dust settles and these cards are fully spoiled and people are like, oh wow, card Y is very good and it will work very well with card B from prior set A. Whatever. And again, I could give examples, but I don't know good ones, and we don't want to spoil anything, so it's not really fair. But I'm sure that there are many cards out there that after these release notes, those cards spiked up pretty fast. And that's a shame, because people haven't even seen what they look like yet.
Right.
And that's not how it should happen. That is how it is currently happening. And I hope that we don't see things like this happening in the near and distant future.
Right.
Because I'd rather, in an ideal world, I would rather it be buttoned up entirely and never happen again. But like I said, it would be very naive of me to expect that, because this is a large company, they work with many different outlets, and some things are gonna fall through the cracks. That's life. And that's the world that we live in now, with instant communication throughout most of the world. But I hope, beyond all hope, that their teams work very hard to do their best to get out in front of this permanently, as opposed to reactively. Because it's a shame for the fans, but it's also a shame for them. Because like I said, they clearly worked really hard on it. And it would suck if you worked that hard on something and then someone else made the decision to show everyone your work, but really only a shell of your work and not the big picture.
Right. And realistically, I mean, that's going to majorly hurt the company.
Yeah. And financially, reputation-wise, etc., but it's also going to hurt, I don't even want to say the egos, because that I think implies something a lot more arrogant, but it's going to hurt the creators. The people who made this stuff, are they going to have as much motivation the next time?
It's going to hurt the creativity.
Yes.
For future sets.
Yes.
Because they're going to realize that it really doesn't matter what they do.
So,
it doesn't. Because someone's going to ruin it.
And so that's why we're trying to do our part in not feeding the leaks. We are talking about them, yes, but we are not giving specifics, because that's not fair. Obviously, we can tell you that if you want to go see this information to spoil yourself, yes, the release notes were included officially in Blake's article from, I believe, last Friday or last Thursday, and one card visually fully was spoiled in Aaron's article from this past Monday. And so if you want to go and see those, you can do that. Be aware that only one full card was spoiled so far.
Right.
And so there is that. Like I said, I'm optimistic. I am happy with the way that it was handled this time. I think they did a very good job of getting Blake's article came out, like I said, evening of, right? Only a couple of hours after. That is a very quick response time for a large company like that. And I have to commend them on it. And then your point was very well taken. Amy made this point before the show started about listening to the fans with Aaron's article, where he said a lot of fans are saying they don't want it this way, so we're not doing it. I have never doubted that Wizards is listening because they've done many things in reaction to things that their fans have said, but this was a really nice way of showing it in, once again, what amounts to a 3-day period, 2 of those days being a weekend, where they weren't even necessarily working, but they would have come in on Monday and either looked at all that stuff that day or have seen it throughout the course of the weekend and reacted to it by not releasing everything this past Monday like they thought they were going to, but getting out ahead of it instead.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know my opinion, the way a company dies is having people on the inside of the company basically doing something to hurt the company in some way, i.e. leaks, and then their response to it is to not fix the problem and not listen to the fans when the fans say, this is how we'd like you to respond. So if a company wants to wash itself down the drain, how it will respond is to, not stop the leaks before they happen, ever, react to them late and poorly, and not listen to the consumer saying, look, this is what we need you to do in this situation. And so I feel like that's what happened the last time, and I feel like this time was significantly better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I would say, in summation, it really just means that they've done a good job this time. There obviously is more work to do, and we are not the ones that have to tell them that they know that.
Right.
There's no way they don't. But all of that being said, I am looking very forward to next week, as I was looking forward to this week last week. I am looking forward to next week when we get into these Dominaria stories. Maybe we see Story Spotlight 1 right off the bat, maybe we don't, but we will have Story 1 next week, 1 of 11.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too.
Should be interesting.
Yes. And again, we will have 5 Magic Story podcasts as well. When those Magic Story podcasts are out, Blake has said, we asked him, in fact, if you follow us on Twitter, you already know this, but we asked Blake if those story podcasts would be in place of the Magic Stories, like it would be, 3 Magic Stories and then a podcast episode and then a story and then an episode and etc. But what he said is they would be released they would not replace one another, but they wouldn't be released concurrently either. There was a little bit of confusion, but it sounds like, who knows? If we want to review the Magic Story podcasts, we can either wait or we can do two jars a week. You guys let us know which one of those you would like. If there is a large outcry for it, maybe we'll consider it. We'll see.
I know I just said that companies die when they don't listen to the fans, but I don't know about 2 jars a week.
We'll see the kind of time that we have in our schedule. But let us know what you thought of our opinions, what you thought of the leaks. Try, just because if you've listened this far into the video, we would rather that you not put specifics into the comment section.
Yeah.
For the same reason that we didn't talk about it. We would appreciate that.
Just to save those of us who haven't seen various things.
Yes, exactly. So, and we will have plenty of time to talk about it. There are 11 weeks of stories to cover. Mm-hmm. So, believe me, we will get to it. Mm-hmm. And we will start that next week on the next episode of JaAR. So, When it pops up on the screen, you can click that subscribe button up there. You will find out when all of our videos come out, JaAR's included. And you will be able to, again, it'll be every Thursday, but you'll be able to be hopefully notified. Thanks, YouTube. Hopefully you're not broken again. Hopefully YouTube will notify you when those videos come out, but otherwise follow us.
It's every Thursday.
Yes, but otherwise follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. They go up there every time, so you can check that out. The links to our Twitter and Facebook are in the comments section below or in the description below. Your opinions will hopefully be in the comments section down below.
Yes, please share those because, like I said, I mean, I always say this, but we do read them, we do listen, we do care.
Yes, and it's for you and us to be able to continue to show off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
Every time. We got Dominaria Vorthos Pride. Anyway, this has been another episode of JaAR here on Geek for All. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed. I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, guys, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.